Welcome to Heartland, Darkland. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Shannon.
Hey,
Hey,
Dark
Dark
Hearts.
Hearts.
It's
That was
been a
pretty good.
while.
It's been a very long while. Happy past Halloween. Happy
Yeah.
Thanksgiving coming up if you celebrate. And yep, that's that.
Yeah. You
I feel like
know,
it's been a really long time. It was
it
before
has
Halloween.
been. It
So
has been. We didn't, this was an unintentional extended break, and it was on me. So I appreciate Shannon
it
being
was
so,
totally fine. Life is busy and there's just a lot going on. And so we
there
have
is.
time now. So here we
Yeah.
are. So
Yeah. I was on vacation, and then when I came back, I was too tired to do anything. And then after the election and everything, I was just in a very depressive state. And so I could not bring myself to do the research that I would want to put forth for this. So, I just appreciate, hopefully, mental health is so important to us. Like, right, we always talk about this. So obviously, when we're both struggling, like we both have our issues, that's why we take this time. So we really appreciate our listeners being supportive in that. It means a lot to us. So like, yeah, if we have unplanned breaks, just know it's either something in life came up or we need to for our own mental health.
yeah,
So,
yes, for sure.
because that's
Um,
important.
yeah. Um, and on that note, I guess I kind of forgot to tell you this too, but it's kind of on the same note too. We are big on mental health, and I actually had someone I know recently reach out to me asking if I had any referrals because she had a child that was dealing with some mental health stuff, and she's like, I know that you guys talk about that a lot, and so I was like, that was a nice thing to know that people can reach out.
Yeah,
Like that made me really happy to know that it's apparent that we care about those things and they matter to us. So, yes.
that's nice.
Yeah.
And if hopefully you had a recommendation. Otherwise, I
Yeah.
even have one if needed. So
Yeah. I was like, I feel like even if we don't have something readily available, we will see what we can do to help you out. So,
yes.
yeah. I have a
No,
friend
so
that's a psychologist. So I just reached out to
oh,
her
nice.
for recommendations for like, the specific age and all that.
Yep,
And
yep.
so, yep. So got
Love
some on
that.
hand. But yeah. So,
So yeah, you guys, especially if you're like kind of in our area and everything, because then my
mhm.
sister and I have a friend who are both,
Oh,
counselors and
yeah.
stuff there,
Yeah.
So if we don't have the answer, like we're happy because sometimes it can just feel overwhelming.
Like
So
where
I
to
know,
start. Yeah.
yeah, so I know I've reached out to them, my sister and my friend before to be like, hey, do you have recommendations for this? Um, so yeah, for you, for your family, for loved ones, like whatever, like we are happy to, we might not have the answer, but sometimes it's just nice knowing you're not alone in
Yeah.
that. So
100%. So
yes,
that was that.
yes, especially this time of year, it can get hard. I mean, it's pitch black by like 5 p.m. now, and that's always a struggle as well. So
Yeah, it's very depressing. And just the seasonal stuff. Yeah, holidays are hard for people.
yes,
So we are aware of that. And so, like Cassie said, sometimes we just take breaks, and sometimes we're late to share with you that we're taking a break. That
yeah,
is that is my fault. But I'm like, just because it is so busy, and so I'm like, oh, I forgot to post something. So thanks for
listen,
not like
just
coming at us.
yeah,
But
just know that if there's not an episode post and there's no episode up, that means that we probably had an impromptu break and we forgot to post
mhm. Like,
post a thing about it. I mean, feel free to like reach out, be like, hey, just wanted to make sure.
you
Because
know,
technical errors do happen, but more often than not, it's going to be that we
yeah.
needed a break.
And like last week, we probably could have recorded an episode, but we went and saw a movie instead. And I think that was fantastic to go do that. And it was
It
much
was
needed. So,
we could have, except I didn't have anything ready. So
right.
it wasn't.
So that's why we're like, you know what? Let's go see a movie, which we saw Heretic, right? Is that what it was called?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, so that was a good one.
that was really good,
I
actually.
enjoyed it.
So,
I would
yeah.
have. I thought it was going to be more horror, and I'd call it more of a
Mm-hmm.
psychological thriller.
Agree. Yep.
But it was still very well done. And what is his name? Hugh Grant.
Oh, yeah. That
He
was,
did great in that
I
role.
loved him in that role, actually, just because it was so out of the norm for him.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I loved it. And yeah, if you're not like a gore person, there's really not I
There's
mean,
not
there's
there's a
a little
there's a
tiny
couple,
bit,
but
but
I'm not a huge gore person, and it
yeah,
was fine. Like there was a few
yeah.
moments you're like, oh dear God, but
If
I
you just
mean,
want a
not
movie
bad.
that you're like, what's gonna happen? I literally was like, and I didn't
Where
look
is this
into it at all
going?
before we went because I was kind of like, I just really want to be like completely surprised. So
Yeah,
it was good. So
it
we did that.
was.
So
We
that's
did.
just
Yeah.
go see a good movie. There's a lot of good ones coming out too. So
There's so many. I want to see Red One is out. I want to see
yes,
that. I want to see Moana
Wicked.
2,
Yeah.
Wicked, Moana 2,
Yep.
like
Uh-huh. That's what we're doing on Halloween. What holiday were
Thanksgiving.
we doing? Yep. We always go to a movie on Thanksgiving because we're like not big on Thanksgiving and it's just me
Yeah.
and the kiddo. And so we're like, usually we just like go to one movie and we were looking and she's like, we should just like go to movies all day. And I was like, why not?
I
So
love
that
that.
is our plan. So I will let you know. But Wicked is so long that I was like, are we going to be like over movies by that time? But no, because we would just be watching movies at home probably anyway.
Great. I love that so much. I know. I'm debating on whether or not the kids and I will maybe go see Moana 2
Yeah.
or Red One. I think they would both like Red One. I don't know if my son, he's hit or miss. Like he liked the
Yeah.
first Moana, but like
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe he would just for the sake of going to a movie. He would
Right.
want to. We'll see. But
Yeah.
I really want to see that one as well. There's so many good
I
movies
know.
coming out.
I'm
So
excited. It's about time. I feel like we've been in a rut for a while there with
I
the
know.
movies. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
So
but
there we
that's a
are.
lot of there's all of our
There's all
good
that,
catch up.
yeah. I will say, real quick too, especially because this is an Iowa case that I'm doing today. Jody Huisentruit, who I
Oh,
covered with
fast.
missing, there was like a brief update. They were looking at a place in I think Minnesota. But unfortunately, nothing came of it.
Okay. I remember you sent me that article and then I never
Yeah.
heard anything else on that too. And so I was not quite sure.
Yeah, so I did look it up and unfortunately, nothing came of that, but it was just so interesting to me that like we had covered this case, which I think that was the last Iowa
Yeah.
case we did, which was like 90 something, so it's been a minute. But I did see an article and that I just kind of quickly glanced at that I think there's a private investigator who said it's down to like 4 suspects or something like that. So
Oh,
hopefully that
wow.
means the fact that we had this things like that means that they're still looking into it.
Yes,
It's still being worked, and hopefully that means that there are more new leads coming about now.
I know.
So
Especially with all the new technology available and stuff that hopefully that helps. But
exactly,
yeah, that
exactly.
is crazy that that popped up right after you had kind of done that case. So
Right.
I know we try to stay with the updates on things as they happen as we see them, but I mean,
Life
obviously
happens.
a lot of things.
Yeah. So,
But that's a
but
good
yeah,
update. There you go.
yeah. So, like I said, this week we're gonna be in Iowa, and we're gonna be in Martinsburg, Iowa, and actually, the case takes place about 4 miles north of the town in a
Okay.
rural farm area, but for the sake of the episode, we're going to call it Martinsburg.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're just coming back, but this episode is going to be a pretty short one, just
Hey, that's
because
fine.
this one, like, it took place in like 61, 62, but there's like no background information on
Uh,
anyone. Mostly everything I found was just like repeating each other. There was one site that I found that had a little bit more details, and I'm not sure where they got it from.
yeah.
And like some of the stuff contradicted the other places, so like I don't know exactly on some
Yeah.
of this, like
Those old ones. Yeah.
details are a little sparse, but this was a case that I feel like I don't remember ever hearing about.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, we're going to talk about it. And that is the case of Gayno Smith.
I'm sorry. What was that? Gano?
Yeah, I'm assuming that's how you say it. It's Gayno.
Okay. Yeah.
His
I
name
mean,
was,
better than gyno, I guess. But if it is
yeah,
gyno, my apologies there.
if it
But
is Gayno, then I'm saying it wrong because I will be saying Gayno. His
yeah.
full name was Gayno Gilbert Smith.
Oh.
Yeah. So he's actually listed as a mass murderer and a serial killer.
Oh my. So we don't care
Wait,
if we say his name right, kind of.
no, no,
Okay.
no. He's not a good
I didn't know if he was
person.
like a victim. So I was like, no,
If
we
he
don't
was
care
a
then.
victim, I would have like looked up more
Yeah.
so how to say his name. But like, and so just for like, I'm
Now
sure a lot of
shit's
people know,
given
but
there.
like mass murder is when they kill multiple people all at once, and a serial killer is over time.
Oh, I
They
don't
have
think
to
I
kill.
even knew that. I
Right.
guess I never
So
thought about it. Thank you for that
yeah,
clarification.
yeah. I was like, well, let's clarify that, right? And I want
Yeah.
to say mass murder and spree killer are kind of because like something it's
They
called, but
go,
like spree killer is like within multiple days of each other, I feel
yeah.
like, and this
Yeah.
really wasn't that. So Gano was born January 23rd, 1938.
Oh my.
Where? No idea. Um, Somewhere in the Midwest, I assume, maybe Iowa, because he had family there, but like, I don't really know. Um, but his parents divorced when he was 12 and he lived with his mom, so they moved around a lot, living in Illinois, Iowa, and Nebraska. And in 1956, he actually graduated from Blair High School in Nebraska. Yeah,
Okay.
so he then went into the Marines, but like after just 10 months, he was medically discharged. So I'm wondering if like he must have injured himself or something. Doesn't
Yeah.
really say.
Huh.
A lot of things say that he was like a hard worker and like a good hunter and stuff, but then it also talks about how he struggled to maintain a job and moved around a lot.
Okay.
And so he was living in Denver, which I think his mom was there at this time, and maybe he was living with her. I don't fully know. That was like I think the one thing said that he was living with her, but everything else just said because of problems there, he moved in with his father, Andrew, and his stepmother, Juanita Smith, in Martinsburg, Iowa, which it was just that everything else I saw just said he talked about how he moved in with his stepmom, and I'm like, well, where the hell's his dad? And then this
Yeah.
one thing talked about his dad, and then it talked about how apparently the three of them were in a bad car accident. And he
Oh.
was fine. Like he would just walk away with some scratches. Juanita had a really bad mouth injury, like so much so that like insurance paid for dentures for her because it was so
Oh.
bad. And
Yeah. Ow.
she spent like a couple weeks in the hospital. And then his father was the worst off, and he spent, it sounds like maybe a month or two there. So this was like,
Pretty bad.
yeah. So this was August of 1960. And Juanita would go to visit Andrew every day. And this was Andrew's third marriage, and this was Juanita's fifth.
Oh. Okay.
Yes.
You do know.
But then in September, Juanita just stopped going to the hospital and speaking to her family,
Hmm.
which her sister like immediately became concerned because that was out of the norm for her. And then like by that Christmas, she said she didn't even get a Christmas card for her, and she said no matter what her sister was doing or where she was at, she would always send a Christmas card.
Oh.
Yeah, so I don't know if a missing persons is filed or not. We'll kind of come back to this because this is weird.
Yeah.
A weird thing, but around this time, Gano was living with them, and he said he was having issues with Juanita, and so he moved in with his aunt Dora, who was the sister of his dad Andrew, and
Okay.
her husband, who was his uncle, whose name was also Andrew, Macbeth. So he moved out into the country on their farm with their four kids, and everything I read, the fourth child, it's like isn't there, and then all of a sudden she is.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh. So on May 27th of 1962, Gano, who was 24 at the time, took the Macbeth children, who were twins, Amos and Anna, who were 19, Donna Jean Kellogg, who was 17 and had actually just moved back home with her 6-month-old baby Perry after recently getting divorced.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And then the fourth child is Patsy, who was 15. And like in everything, it's not really mentioned. Like everything makes it seem like it was just the other three who went. But then Patsy isn't around later. And then all of a sudden she is. So I'm not exactly sure if Patsy went with or not. Okay. But they
Yeah.
all went.
Hey, it's old. It's an old
Yeah.
case.
So they all went to a dance in, I want to say it was Brighton, Iowa, and I'm not sure how far that was, but I'm assuming not terribly far.
Right.
So Gano stayed for a little bit, but then he went back to the house and he got some guns and shot them through the living room
Oh
window,
my gosh.
killing Dora and Andrew.
Jeez.
Yeah. And he dragged their bodies into the garage before he left again to return to the dance and pick all of the kids up.
Okay.
And he also apparently like stopped by a diner on the way back home and bought them all sandwiches and sodas, which is really weird for what he then decides to do when they get home. It almost feels like I don't know if he was giving them a last meal or
Yeah, that's
what. Um, so when they return home, like I guess it's a storming night and the lights
of
were
course.
out.
It always
And
is.
so they just assume it was a power outage, but I'm thinking Gano had done something and cut the power.
Oh.
Because then later it'll mention that the phone lines were cut.
Oh.
Um,
Yeah.
again, so very little information. But one article says that Amos and Donna found their parents' bodies in the garage, and another said it was just Amos. And that while he was there, he heard a gunshot, which was actually Gano shooting Amos's twin sister Anna in the back of the head in the living room.
Jeez.
The other article says that the girls tried to call for help and then realized the phone lines were cut. So again, I'm not really sure, but we do know Amos was then shot. Like Anna, it sounds like was shot first in the living room, and then Amos was shot in the face. And Patsy will later say that she heard him begging for his life, and asking Gano not to kill him, and then he was shot again and killed. And Donna was shot in the head as well, and she was apparently in her baby's room.
Oh.
Patsy was then also shot, but only in the shoulder, and so she like ran out the house. Gano tried to chase her down in his car, but she like ran into a ditch and through a field until she came upon a neighbor's house.
Oh.
And there they were able to call police and call for help. So aside from baby Perry, who it doesn't seem like he ever shot at or intended to kill, she was the only survivor.
Wow.
And, you know, he disappeared. Like, he took off then. And it took 3 days before they found him in a barn and he was arrested. And he didn't resist. But, like, at first, he denied murdering anyone. And he tried to say that he had left the day prior. And when he left, he saw everyone and they were fine. But then as he was driving to visit his mom in Denver, he heard that he was the suspect, so he abandoned his car and then was like hiding out, you know?
Yeah, okay. Did he not realize the one girl survived? I mean,
I don't know if at
well, I guess
first
he
he
probably
thought,
would have never known, I guess, if she,
yeah.
yeah, ran off.
So then they were like, okay, come on. So then he finally was like, after a few days, he was like, okay, fine, I want to tell you the truth, but like, whatever. So he actually then confessed to murdering his stepmother, Juanita. No motive was ever given. And also, I just want to note too, so some of the weirdness and where I'm like, did no one file a missing or persons point is his dad, after 6 months of her just being gone, was just like, well, she must have left me. And so he filed for a divorce. And she didn't show up to the hearing for it, which her sister was like, this would have been her 5th divorce. And like, she showed up to every other one. So like, she would have shown up to that.
Yeah.
And so then they like, go into the house. Like, I guess police check the house again, and her dentures, which were the brand new ones she just got, were still there. Her hearing aids were still there. Her glasses and her purse. I'm like, did no one, like, these are all things
Right.
he would have needed?
For
Did
survival.
no one look or think about that? And like, her husband wasn't like, all of her stuff is still here. This is weird.
Right. Like, what was the mindset there? What? I don't understand that.
I don't know. It's very weird to me, and I don't understand how everyone just thought that she up and left.
Yeah. Without all that stuff, especially.
Yeah.
And
so
how old was she? She was like,
at this point, I don't even know.
I mean, she would have been, yeah, I mean, old enough, like, yeah, not, I mean, if it's her 5th marriage, I guess I would assume older, where like she's probably not going to run away at this point in her life. Like,
right. And so, unfortunately, so she would have been killed probably roughly September of 1960. And her body was finally found June 12th So that was a few days, like shortly after all these other murders,
Yeah.
in a shallow grave near the house, actually.
So she was killed before them, just like on a
Yes.
separate thing.
Which is where
Okay.
I think they're calling him a serial killer because he's
Oh.
killed more than one person, but like, and it was in different times, but like you had this one person, and I don't know if they think that he killed anyone else prior to her.
Right. I mean, you never
Um,
know, I
you
guess.
never know, but I feel like there's no way he should have gotten away with killing her if anyone did any sort, like, thought
Right.
at all. And so then
Pieced
that
it
makes me
together. Yeah.
think, yeah, so that also then makes me think that, like, maybe this whole family could still be alive if people were just like, hey, Juanita's stuff is all still here. This is really weird. Maybe we
Yeah.
maybe we look into the guy who was living with her
Right. Because I feel
at
like
the
at that
time.
point he's like, no one's even noticed. Like, this is my chance to take out everybody
Right.
else too.
Yeah. And and then his
Weird.
aunt, uncle, and all of them like took him in with open
Yeah.
arms.
That's
So
shitty.
I don't think he ever gave a motive as to why he did these things. And
Right.
he
Snapped.
and like there was a psychologist who uh, said he was sane. Like I don't know if they
Weird.
tried to do so. He pled guilty and was found guilty of 5 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of second-degree murder. So I don't know if
Hmm.
I'm assuming the second-degree murder would have been Juanita, and I don't know if maybe he said like maybe it was a crime of passion type thing, like something
Yeah.
happened in that moment they thought and
Yep.
he killed her and it wasn't thought out, whereas clearly it kind of seems like this one, like the other family
Right.
was.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
yeah. Especially when he took the time to go back, pick them up, feed them, and
yeah,
then still kill them.
yeah. So he was sentenced. He had 5 consecutive life sentences of hard labor. Mhm.
Hmm.
And
Wait,
so
what?
then Perry was actually adopted by Andrew Macbeth's brother Furman and
All
was
right.
raised with his 9 biological children.
My.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Wikipedia says that Perry talks about how like he himself was actually a bully growing up because he wanted people to hurt the way he did and that how sorry he was for that behavior. But then
Hmm.
that other article I found that like talked about a little bit more stuff talks about how he was bullied. And I have a feeling it was the former. I feel like that other one like misquoted something because if
Yeah.
we have quotes of him saying like I just wanted people
Right.
hurt the way I hurt.
That makes
Um
sense.
and then there's like nothing about Patsy. It just says that she stayed in Martinsburg for a while and then left because she didn't want to be reminded of the murder. So I'm like, did she go with other family? Did she just, I mean, it was the 60s. Did she just go off on
Right.
her own?
Yeah.
I don't know. But then Gano died in prison in 2005.
Okay.
Some sort of like, I don't know, blood vessel thing. I didn't care enough to really look into it. Like, I think he had tried to get out on parole a few different times, but it's like, dude, you killed so many people and just hold blood.
Right. You shouldn't
And
ever get out.
no, and for no apparent reason, like
Yeah.
it's so weird. And like I said, this is such a bare bones case,
Yeah.
but I feel like it's also such like how is there one not more information about this? I feel like this was a small
Yeah.
town
And
with
how many people actually got killed?
so in the family there was the husband and
Five,
wife, so
six.
Dora and Andrew, and then Amos and Anna and
Mhm.
Donna. So 5 that night, but 6 total with
With
Juanita.
Juanita. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty insane for that not to be a big thing. I mean, it's just like Velisca. It was like, what? Was it close to the same amount of people? Like, either way. I mean, I get that that one's probably bigger just because it was never solved, where this one was in a way, but like, why have I never heard of this?
Right, and why isn't there like more background information on
Yeah,
any of these people? And like, why is it so hard to find it? Like I said, everything is just the bare bones facts of it. And I'm like,
that's
okay, but
sad.
like, was there something that led to this? Did he have a history of mental illness? Which it
Right.
doesn't sound like. Like, one thing talked about how he didn't get very good grades, but like he was a football player and stuff like that. And like,
Well, and if
I
they
have
said
no
he
idea.
was not, yeah, like insane, then it's like, okay, yeah, did they just not get along? Like, what was the deal? I mean, it seems like they probably got along if they're going places together and like
Yeah.
going to a dance, going to eat. Like, I don't know. That seems very out of character just based off the little bit that we do have.
Right. Yeah. So it's such a weird case, and like I said, it's so short. There's like nothing to it. But I'm like, I have never heard of this. I don't understand how someone kills their entire family. And again, I'm like, how did no one? Oh, poor Juanita. I
I
mean, obviously,
know.
poor all of them. But like I said, I
Right.
feel like if people had been like, "Hey,
Right.
this
That
is
could have stopped
weird,"
it. Yep.
that could have stopped things, because
A
I feel
lot.
like it can't have like he can't have done a very good job if he didn't hide all those things and make
I
it look
know.
like she left.
Right. Like if you're going to take the time to bury a grave too, like why wouldn't you take that extra step to hide the things if
Yeah,
you
bury
really
them
wanted it
with
to look?
her or something.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
As we say, not trying to tell you how to get away with murder, but like
But
it
yeah.
just seems like if even the bare and like his father, I'm like, are you a shitty person
I
too? That you're
know.
just like, well, she must have left. I'm like, with all of her stuff, just
Yeah.
left here? Like, this makes
Yeah.
no sense
I
to
really
me.
doubt that woman wants to be seen without teeth. Thanks. Like,
I'm pretty sure she needs her glasses and hearing aids on a
yeah,
daily
oh, fair.
basis,
That
and her
too.
purse.
Yeah. Where's she going without any of that? Nowhere.
Yeah, it
That's
just makes no
crazy.
sense.
That's a
So,
sad story. Wow. How
yeah,
did you even find that? Like with that
I
little
can look.
information? Because
Um,
sometimes I'm like, I find these random things and I'm like,
I do.
how is
So
this
I
not a
think
thing?
it started with I was looking up cases for Iowa, like lesser known Iowa
Uh-huh.
cases. There was something called like the diner murders where I looked up and there was like even less information for that,
Oh,
even though it was more
yeah.
recent. And then it was like serial killers who have unexpected ties to Iowa, which I thought about covering that Anchorage serial killer
Oh,
based on
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I know he's fairly well known who, would take women and hunt them in the Alaska wilderness.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I think it was somehow in the course of that I stumbled upon this and I was like, I'm sorry, what? And I was
Random.
like, okay. And I was like, how is there not more information at all?
I
I think he was
know.
briefly mentioned in one of those things. And so
Okay.
then I looked up his name and I was
Yeah.
like, okay. And I was like, how is there not more of this?
I know. That is really crazy and sad. Like, I don't understand how some cases get so much media attention, which I know that's an old case and stuff, but
Yes.
still, I mean, I guess maybe in like small towns too, there's not as many people like when you're out in an area like that where people don't know the
Yeah.
ins and outs of like, personalities that mesh
Yeah.
and don't. I don't know. I mean, that's just still crazy. Because
Yeah.
that's in the 60s. Okay.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that's the Martinsburg
Martinsburg.
murders. Yeah, like I said, it's a short one this week, but I was just like it these are the things that it's like I wish there was more information about these
Yeah.
victims that I could say more, but at least this is a way for them to still kind of be remembered too.
Yeah, for sure.
It sounds like they had a farm. Obviously, Donna,
They sound like nice people. I mean, willing to take like him in and just
yeah.
the more the merrier type thing.
Hmm.
Very sad. And then same with the woman with the baby. I can't remember who was she the daughter?
She was a
Daughter,
daughter. She was
daughter.
a
Okay.
17-year-old daughter, and
That's
she had
right.
just gotten divorced, which I'm like, my goodness, you were
17.
probably
Oh,
married at like
yeah.
16
Oh, yeah.
and had a bit. And I wonder though if it was one of those things of like she got pregnant, so they were like forced to get
Let's get
married.
married. Yeah. Yep. That
But
would make
then
sense too,
the
especially
fact that
back
they
in
got
that time.
divorced,
Yeah, that
and
seems
her
weird.
baby was only 6 months old, but so she had just moved back home, and so her
Yeah.
parents were watching the baby so she could go out with her siblings, and
Yeah. That's so sad. I
because
mean, I'm
she
glad
was
the
still a
baby was okay,
child.
but yeah.
I know when at first I was like, if this baby is murdered too, I'm not covering this case and I'll find
I
something
know.
else. But once I saw that he was safe, I was like, okay.
Okay. I don't care if he turns out to be a little asshole later in life, but
I mean,
because
understandable. If
he just
you're,
apologized,
yeah,
like
like,
he's been through some
listen,
shit.
he's been through some shit, and that's not to excuse it. But then, like, when you've been through some shit and then you're thrown in with a family that has 10 children, I'm sorry, you
Yeah.
can't tell me that kid got all of the care he
No, they're
needed.
probably like, yeah, what's another one? Just throw him in. It's fine. Like,
Right.
honestly, at that point, you just probably number them because how can you
Yeah. At
ever
that
keep
point,
track?
the oldest are starting to help take
Yeah.
care of and raise
Yeah.
the younger ones. So,
Man, that woman had to be pregnant. like just, I mean, years on years on
I
years.
know. I can't imagine that. That sounds terrible.
Yeah. Nope. Not for me.
Absolutely
That life is
atrocious.
not for me.
No, no, not at all. So yeah, you guys, that is our case.
Okay.
You
Well,
know,
I'm glad you found that one. I always like when it's one we don't necessarily know. I mean, not that we
yeah,
know them all, but like
right. But
some of these, that's like the whole reason we started doing this podcast was because of these cases that you don't ever hear about. So
exactly.
that was perfect. And I sometimes it's nice to have a short one just to ease on back in, So
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
So you guys know the drill. I know it's been a while, but like, rate, review, share, follow on all the socials. They're all
All
going to
the
be linked
things.
in the show notes. And, until next time, stay Heartland kind.
But Dark Land wary.